Okay, so now we're going to start stitching the zipper on, and you've already pinned it. The thing that's important here is figuring out how close to the zipper itself, to the zippy part, you want to be stitching. First of all, when you start stitching, you want to go a little ways in from the fabric and not at the very end. Okay, that's important later. We'll deal with it then. So when you stitch, there is a slight line going on right here. I'm not sure if you can see it in the light, but there's a little line going on there. So if you want to follow that line, that's fine. Do not follow this dark line. That is the plastic of your zipper. And if you start stitching there, you won't be able to zip your zipper. Okay? So if you see this line and you're comfortable with that line, go with it. If you don't, forget it. Okay? I'm going to go on the line, and again, starting a little ways in. It's very important here to do your fancy knot. And my my thread is wanting to knot. There we go. Fancy knot. Always on the side where it just came through. You don't have to knot. You just have to knot the fabric. So remember, we're taking a tiny bit of fabric, pulling it through, and while there's still a loop there, you're gonna send the needle through the loop. Okay, so first things first, get that knot done. No big deal if the knot's not perfect. If it's not perfect. It's funny, isn't it? All right, now we are ready to go ahead and do our straight stitch. Smaller is better because that makes it a little stronger, but you don't have to go small, okay? You don't want to go gigantic, but you don't have to go small. So something that is helpful and makes your stitches a little straighter is, instead of going back and forth like this, you can go, let me get it up in there. Again, you're always kind of guesstimating where that needle comes in. Take your time. Okay, now I am ready to move this pin out because you don't want to pin yourself with anything more than the needle. Something that makes it easier for straightness is when you're going to that next stitch, do like you did when you did the fancy knot and come through like this. That makes it a lot easier so that you don't have to sit there and guesstimate 900 times where your needle needs to come through. You just see where the needle needs to come through. Okay. It is possible, and I think for me definitely happening, that I'm going to end up with not enough thread. And that's okay. Every single time you have to stop using the thread, you need to do the knot, okay, the fancy knot. If you don't have enough thread to do the fancy knot, let me know, because what we're going to have to do is a fancy knot that does not actually stay as good, but hopefully it will, if that makes any sense. Okay? And that's how we're stitching our zipper on. Okay, so here I've stitched only to about the center, and as you can see, I'm starting to get low on thread. This might not look low to you, but it is. Something you don't want to do when you're knotting off a piece, especially on the zipper. You don't want to do the knot right here next to the zipper, because that's how things get jammed in the zipper gets stuck. It's really annoying. So what you should probably do to solve that problem is take a stitch to perhaps the outer part so that you're over here and you're doing your knot on the far edge. That will keep it from unraveling and getting stuck in the zipper. Now again, fancy knot. Okay. And then since it's the end knot for your particular piece of fabric, you want to do it again as close to the same spot as possible. Now notice I didn't have a lot of room to make that fancy knot, room on the thread, that is. This is a lot of thread left over, I think, for most people, but it's necessary to have that much so that you can do the loopy business, okay? I'll show you one more time, make myself a third knot. You do not need to make 3. But you see, my needle is almost as long as my loop, and it gets difficult if it's even shorter than that, because you end up going, oh my gosh, trying to squish it in, okay? So make sure you have several inches left when you're ready to do that final knot. Okay, there we go. Okay, so when you get to the end of the zipper, what you want to do is stitch just a smidge past the metal part with your zipper closed. So I'm just going to take a few more stitches here. You don't want to go all the way to the end because we're going to need that little bit of space for when we stitch the sides, okay? And I think I'll take one more little stitch. Okay, so you can see I just went a little bit over the metal part. And again, you guessed it, fancy stitch. Go through the thing. Okay, and then through it again, because remember at the end we do 2 of the fancy knots. Okie dokie. And then you pin the other side of the zipper like so. Fold it in half. Pin like so. Where your zipper you can put flat if you want. Line up the edges. Like sides together, remember? So this is right sides together. That's the right side of the zipper. That's the right side of your fabric. And then you're going to go ahead and pin it again. And you know the rest. Pin it in the direction you plan to stitch. Pin it as much as you feel comfortable to keep it flat and together. And then we continue.